welcome back. Thank you for being here with me on video 2. We did video 1, which was more about me and how I discovered this thing called the hero's journey. And today I want to talk to you about where I went with it, how I researched more and what I found out. So I came away, if you remember, it was in Camden in the library in the dark basement where I heard this woman talk about Dorothy and the Wizard of Oz and how it compared to Joseph Campbell's framework for the hero's journey, which was like an epiphany for me. It did a lot of connecting of dots for me with my childhood interest in the Wizard of Oz and in stories. And then also, even with my teaching, early years of teaching mythology, it was something I wanted to know more about. And how could I use it? And how could I use it particularly to help women? So I went and researched, and Joseph Campbell, I learned, was a longtime professor at Sarah Lawrence College. He was a mythologist. He studied myth and stories, and he wrote many, many books. But his classic, the one he's most known for, is The Hero with 1,000 Faces. And I got it. And did I read it page for page? No, there's a lot there. It's a dense study of mythology. But here's the thing that really captured me about it. So he looks at all these stories, all these myths, and he finds a common pattern. It's the hero's journey. And he realizes that in all cultures throughout time, storytellers told the story of the hero. For thousands of years, they've been telling it, and they're still telling it today. And it's in our common literature and common films. And he particularly liked that because he said, all of us, there's in mankind, so many differences in everything, in our cultures and politics and religion. But wow, here's a story that we all have, that we tell, again, throughout the world in common with this very same theme, how a man, and again, he would say at the beginning, this is for men and women, but his examples were all men in his book. But he said we all travel the same road. It's the same story, which is why it's the hero with 1,000 faces, because it can look different on different people and different cultures, but it's the same story, the same hero story. So if you'll remember, again, from the first video, I was working with groups in conflict, people in conflict. And the thing that every mediator does is tries to find what we call common ground. And it's exactly what he was doing with these stories, is finding common ground by finding this hero pattern that's repeated everywhere. And it so appealed to me to be able then to use that same pattern with women. And again, I'm going to talk to you in the third video about how I was able to adapt it and make it relatable to women. But I could see that here's something that could bring us together, something that we could use to talk about together, that even though we were very different people coming together to work together, there's a common story here, a common theme. So I wondered if there was a possibility to work with women. But let me, before I go there, talk to you about, so what did Campbell mean? What was this pattern? And what did he mean by hero? And he said, and he has passed away, But he said that he felt that everybody had the capacity to be a hero. And if you go through trials and challenges that build you and grow you and change you and transform you, you are on the heroic journey. So anybody could be a hero. And that's how the story starts, is an ordinary person. So here are the sort of major steps in this. And he had many steps, but here, these are the major ones. An ordinary person starts out, and he called it ordinary life, and they're in ordinary life. And that might be in a village, in a very common situation. We think of it as somebody in their comfort zone even. And they're doing okay, but they might be bored. They might be feeling dissatisfied or unchallenged, or just something isn't in sync. And then something happens. And he called that the call. And it could be something inside, that there's that feeling of dissatisfaction. How do I act on that? Maybe I should leave and go on a trip. Or maybe something happens on the outside that brings in a invitation to do something different. And then the hero can decide, or the hero in training doesn't know that they're a hero, can decide whether to go with the call or to refuse it. And that's a whole nother step, refusal of the call. I don't want anything to do with this. I'm going to just stay in my comfort zone. But eventually the call gets stronger and stronger, and then it could be a wake-up call. And something happens that propels the hero out onto his adventure, and he crosses like an imaginary threshold from the old world of his comfort zone, where things used to be, into the new world, this adventure, into the unknown, where he hasn't been before. So the unknown is full of things you don't know, challenges, change. There are enemies there that try to dissuade you. There's also threshold guardians as you're crossing into this unknown area. They're telling you, be careful, you're not going to make it. You're not smart enough. You're not pretty enough. You're going to lose all your money. And there's also internal, I don't think I can do this. This is crazy. I'm not a hero. I don't have the confidence to make this trip. But that's all part of it. You're expected to go through those threshold guardians, who often just stay with you the whole trip in the story. And there's other more difficult dragons that you meet up with, and challenges, and there's often mentors, people that come to help you find your way. And eventually, through all this, there's something called the belly of the whale. That's Campbell's term, that it can be when things are totally turned upside down and you don't know if you're sitting up or lying down and the rug has been pulled out from under your feet. Another way, he called it the womb of the world, because you're being really rebirthed into another higher, more evolved iteration of yourself as a hero. And you continue on. You may be given gifts that are actual material gifts, like Jason and the Argonauts, he got the golden fleece. Or it's just gifts of being a better person, a stronger, more confident, more brave person. And usually the hero at the end of the story and all these myths returns to their village, and people are amazed at the transformation. So think, ordinary person to start, has no knowledge of what's within them because it hasn't been brought to the fore yet. And then at the end, it's totally transformed, having done things that they never, ever thought they could do. thanks to the journey and going on this heroic journey and the things that happened to him. So if you look at those steps, and again, there was Campbell pulling together all the examples and seeing this common pattern and marveling that it had been with us forever. This archetype, which has an energy field all of its own, which is why it's so powerful to read or hear a story that has a hero's journey in it, because of that remarkable sense of what happens and maybe the potential for how it could happen to you. And so what are the stories today that you might, there's many stories today that you might be able to relate to the hero's journey theme. And one is Star Wars, and Luke Skywalker experienced kicking around in the planet that he was in with his aunt and uncle, and he was feeling unfulfilled and bored and didn't like what he had to do until he got his call. And that call was when he was fooling around with the droid and trying to make it work again, and he got Princess Leia. Obi-Wan Kenobi, I need your help. And that started him. That was his call, which he refused initially. He didn't want to do anything until things started happening, and he really didn't have much of a choice. And think about how he transformed from the beginning to what he was able to do, flying into the Death Star all by himself to vanquish Darth Vader's evil empire. And other characters like the Hobbit, Bilbo Baggins, ordinary person living in his little wonderful little Hobbit house, eating his meals, very content. And then Gandalf the wizard knocks on his door and says, hey, I need somebody to go on an adventure. And an adventure was the last thing Bilbo ever wanted to do. But again, he gets convinced. The dwarves come and sing their song, and it starts to knock on his door, and he goes and becomes this amazing heroic person who gets rid of this ring of power and does everything Gandalf was hoping he would do, and then returns to his village, and people can't believe in his transformation. So this is what Campbell did. He was able to educate us about what had been maybe even hiding in stories for thousands of years. And what a wonderful, common tool this was for bringing us together. And do we ever need bringing together in every time, no matter when we're living, what culture we're talking about? So my task then, I learn about this, I'm inspired, and I've just sort of totally skimmed the surface with you. But I thought, well, what about Dorothy? Can I bring it back to Dorothy? Can I then share this story in a way that women can relate and see maybe their own lives in this pattern, even though there are very different ways, I think, that we think of male heroes, and do we even think of female heroes, and how that all works. And that's the next video. So I hope, as I interpret a woman's hero's journey or heroine's journey in the next video, that you will join me. And I would like you to consider that maybe there's a heroine's journey or a hero's journey in you, but we'll learn more about that. Thank you so much for being with me during this video, and I'll see you in the next one.